things, including some, well, I'll let him talk about it, but site selection, executive search, kind of research, and a lot of projects. He's working with IEDC and Apex on a project here in Itasca County, so that's exciting for that. He's responsible for implementing the long-term mission and creating economic growth for small, mid-sized companies and communities. And he oversees the quality control and provides technical expertise to the services that they offer. He's served on the boards of directors of a number of organizations, and he's from the South. You'll hear that very soon. Louisiana, right? Yes. And so anyway, welcome. Please welcome Chad Chancellor. Thanks.
Thank you. I grew up in rural Mississippi, and now I live in New Orleans. So you never know if it's going to be Hick or Southern or Cajun or what's going to come out, according to whatever word it is. So I hope that y'all can understand about every other word that I say. But I'm very, very pleased to be here. And we do have clients north of y'all. I was just telling him we do a lot of work in Winnipeg. So y'all are south as far as I'm concerned. You're going to be Southern today. I actually served on the American Canadian Chamber of Commerce board, believe it or not. I saw some of y'all walking around with Canadian American flags. Yeah, I used to serve on that board, and they always got a kick out of my accent up there. But Canadians love New Orleans. I tell them I'm from New Orleans and I was in. But anyway, I think y'all have a huge opportunity with Canadian companies, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we started X Move Group in 2014. When I was a kid, I was raised in rural Mississippi. I mean, this is a big city compared to where I was raised. And overnight, my dad worked at a Sunbeam plant, as did his twin brother and two of my aunts and uncles. They were 10 of them. They were farm kids. And overnight, all four of them lost their jobs. Sunbeam moved the plant to China in 1991. They used to make electric blankets. If you used to get an electric blanket from Sunbeam, it would come from our little Mississippi town. So I've been worried about outsourcing jobs since way before COVID-19 ever came along. And now look what we're dealing with from a supply chain standpoint. So I really believe that the rural towns are going to be our way out of this. I mean, I live in downtown New Orleans. I live right by City Hall. You ever been down there between the Superdome and Bourbon Street? That's where I live in a condo. So I live in downtown, but I'm telling you, to get out of the mess we're in, it's going to be the rural towns get us out of it. I'm watching people leave every day. Before the hurricane came, we just had a hurricane, so I'm not talking hurricane. So, but I got my start in Mobile, Alabama, as a grunt worker in a 40-person economic development organization when I was 22. And Mobile had tremendous success. We won an Airbus airplane manufacturing plant. You would consider Mobile a mid-sized town. It's not a little town. But I thought to myself, somebody could take what we're doing here and do this for rural, because I was from rural Mississippi. So that's really the reason we started this company, and I'll get into telling you a little bit about it. So we really say we exist to help small to mid-sized communities, nonprofits, and companies grow together. So we represent companies as far as finding sites. We represent a number of Canadian companies. I just tell him two from the same Winnipeg industrial park of all things, where I think y'all have a tremendous opportunity. So we like to help small to mid-sized companies, but also small to mid-sized communities, and almost pair them together. Because when you land a $500 million company still owned by the family, they're not going up and move to Mexico or China to save a penny on labor. You're not going to have to keep giving them incentives to keep them. You're going to have them from a retention standpoint. So that's very much what we try to do. So we've had clients from across the country. Right now, we're representing a Brazilian steel mill. We're going to put somewhere on the Mississippi River. Canada, Israel, literally, I think 40 states, over 400 clients since 2014. When we started, I don't know that we expected such a demand, but it's actually exceeded everything that we could have thought of. So here's some of our clients. So that Sterling Packaging, for instance, was a company in Winnipeg. Believe it or not, they make boxes for the microbrewery industry. So the big box companies don't want to stop to print off, 1,000 Joe's beer. They want to print 1 million Budweiser cans or boxes. And this company in Winnipeg was making they'll print you one box, or they'll print you, 100, whatever you want. They were hauling their paper from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for 30 years to Winnipeg. And then when all the COVID and the border stuff happened, they said, we've got to have a plant in the United States. So this is just an example of one of the companies that we helped move. They actually ended up putting a plant in Alabama. But these are some of the companies we've represented. And additionally, we've represented ports, airports, utilities. We also do executive search. So we help economic development organizations hire their economic developers. As we have done that, you end up meeting you know, the airport people and the port people and the railroad people and the schools. So now we do all kind of searches, but it all came really out of economic development. I think right now we're doing 10, none in Minnesota, but we're doing them from Washington State. We won one yesterday in Maryland, Florida. I guess West Fargo, North Dakota is probably the closest one we've done. In 2017, this was really a turning point for us. So for those, most of this talk today is going to be about industrial recruitment. But if you have entrepreneurial programs, we are a success story. In 2017, Goldman Sachs chose us for small business accelerators, what they call it. You couldn't be a startup. You had to already have, I think it was $500,000 in revenue, 2 or 3 employees. It was not for startups. It was for companies already established. They chose us for this program called the 10,000 Small Businesses Program. In the Obama administration, when they got in trouble in the housing crisis, this was their penance. They were going to help 10,000 small businesses double. It was what their goal was. And somehow or another, they picked us for this. They flew to New Orleans, where I live, every week, a different expert every Thursday to train us on various stuff. They flew the head of the NBA union in to train us on negotiations, as an example. This was about a 10-week program. Since we did it, our revenue's probably up 500%. We now have 9 employees. I mean, it's been a tremendous, I was one of these, I kind of thought an entrepreneur was born, and you are born with a certain tolerance of risk. I really didn't know you could train entrepreneurs, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So for those of y'all who have entrepreneurial programs, we actually have a show where we went over this that Apex has access to. We went over to 10 different modules, like what we had to do on day one, and it might be something you want to recreate. You certainly don't have to be Goldman Sachs to do it. It worked for us. And if you look now at the tax revenue we're paying and all, it obviously was a tremendous opportunity. But now we got a show where we talk about this. We got podcast shows, YouTube shows. We'll have 5,000 people watch it. So what I'm telling you is there are people out there that care about rural economic development. That's what we talk about. We call it small to mid-size because everybody thinks they're mid-size. When we said rural, people thought, well, I don't know if I'm rural or not. Y'all, Nashville thinks it's mid-size. I think it's a big city. Though we'll get calls all the time from Nashville. You know, we're a mid-sized city. We're for y'all. If we said rural, we wouldn't be. But so, you know, what we really are passionate about are the rural communities, and we speak at all kind of stuff. This is our team now. We are lucky down there. For those of you who need it, this is just speaking in Canada. I wanted y'all to know that y'all were Southern, as far as I'm concerned. So, but we have 2 of our employees got master's degrees in economic development. So the University of Southern Mississippi down there in Hattiesburg has a master's of economic development program. 2 of them got a degree from that. So when it comes to any kind of economic research or strategic planning or whatever, we can do that. Anything. Well, one of them has a degree in tourism. I didn't even know that was such a thing. There is theories around getting tourists to come to your town. Lord knows with this lake, y'all can do that. So we have tried to hire smart people who really have a background in this, from a master's degree and a bachelor's degree. Sitting at my breakfast table this morning, somebody said, you know, people don't really know what economic development is. Kids don't know to go in it. And you're 100% right. But down there, we actually have a degree program where you can do it. And so they'll do it online as well. If you ever want to do that, you don't have to actually travel down there. But John Sisson joined our team in 2016. So he's part of something called the Site Selectors Guild. Some of y'all may go to. It's all the 40 or 50 biggest site selectors in the country. He had worked for Fluor Engineering. So he cited projects for Ford Motor Company and Shell Oil, all these type folks. And so we hired him because I said, we need the Fortune 100 company process for our small to mid-sized clients. That's what we want. So he joined us in 2016. So now when we help a company figure out where to put a location, we're not just running around looking for a random building or whatever. I mean, we're basically using Fluor Engineering's process of how to find that. So some of what we're going to talk about in a minute is how to be prepared. And that's so that when you get those chances to look, you're going to score highly and you're going to have a shot to win. And one of the things, you know, a lot of these projects go to existing buildings. I know y'all don't have a lot of building inventory, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is our smart kid. He got a 4.0 also in economics. This is our lady with the tourism degree. If you ever need tourism expertise, I got 0, but she's got some. All right, so let's start with why does economic development matter? I like to start with this, and I like to reverse engineer things because I'm just a simple boy from Mississippi, so I like to kind of reverse engineer it. So down between New Orleans and Baton Rouge in a rural parish, we actually Shell Oil before the hurricane, so all this stuff's before the hurricane, don't blame that. Shell Oil announced they're closing a refinery in St. James Parish, Louisiana, which is small. St. James Parish is probably 50,000 people. And this article came out that showed the taxes that this was going to cost the parish. We call counties parishes down there, so y'all know. So that's what we call it. $24 million a year. I don't know if I got a red button on here. 20% of the parish's revenue gone. In other words, you can't give away enough incentives to attract an industry. If 20% of your revenue can be gone overnight. Down here, the school board lost 12% of its revenue. As luck would have it, nearly all my family are school teachers, whatever the reason. That's what they grow up wanting to be. I halfway wanted to be a coach one time, but I didn't do it. My niece is a school. They would never guess that an industry closing could cost them 12% of their revenue. We talking school buses, drivers, maintenance, all this kind of stuff. So just imagine in this little parish, 20% gone for roads and bridges and jail and everything. 12% gone as far as the school system is concerned. So when I got into this business, I was passionate about jobs because my daddy lost his to China in 1991. I mean, you don't even have to pay me to help somebody create jobs. That's what I get up every day worried about. In reality, though, your job is to create revenue so that the people that already lives here have a good quality of life. And you can't do that unless you have tax-paying industries paying into the system. So what we're going to really talk about is how you can attract those. But when I read this morning, it just hit me. I don't mean this morning, but the morning I read it, I thought, what a tremendous study. People always say you give it too many incentives. You'll read that. That's impossible. If you really understand this, that's impossible. So why is an economic developer's job so hard? I like to talk about that. I don't know how many of y'all are economic developers versus stakeholders, elected officials, and so forth. But this is a hard job. You can't come into it thinking that it's easy. It's hard. I used to be one, and now I own my own business. I'll tell you, it was 500 or 600% harder than running my own business. I say that because I run into board members as we do executive searches. We'll have the chairman of a board along his own business. He'll say, well, anybody can do that. I run my own business. I know I could be an economic developer, and I'll tell them, no, I did it. I run my own now, and it's a whole lot harder. Why is it so hard? Well, you're marrying the public and private sector. Think about it. What harder thing is there to do in the United States? Barack Obama, the right don't like. Trump, the left don't like. I mean, there's nobody been able to figure this out. Nobody. So now it's y'all's job to figure it out as economic developers. But you've got to marry up the public and private sectors. And in our rural communities, the public sectors have to play more of a factor because you don't have private developers putting up spec buildings. You don't have private realtors, most likely corporate realtors bringing you prospects every day. You're going to have to generate this for yourself. And economic developers got to know a little about everything. Literally. I mean, you got to know a little about your water, your sewer, your gas, your education, your pest control, not pest, the animal control. I was once with a prospect and a pack of dogs run out in front of a car, and he said, they must have no animal control around here. Well, of course they did, but the economic developer had to say something. They had to, this is what we do about it. You got to know a little about everything. That's what's so hard. You just never know what a prospect is going to ask. So we're going to talk in a minute, the inventory of stuff that you want to keep. And I say it's like the PGA Tour. Down south, we were doing a search for Tuscaloosa, where University of Alabama is. And I said, what kind of person y'all want? When we're talking about their economic developer, they said, well, we need another Nick Saban. Well, they're in Tuscaloosa. So of course, that's what I said. You don't get a Nick Saban in this. You don't win at economic development every day. You don't go 12-0. Of course, they just lost, so that's a bad example. You don't go 11-1. This is like the PGA Tour. If you win the Masters one time, you won it. You don't have to win it 20 times. If you win a tournament a year, you're in the Hall of Fame. That's how I view economic development. But we will run into boards and mayors and so forth as we do executive searches. Think you win at this every day. You don't. You got to think about it like the PGA Tour. You got to make your cuts. You got to get yourself in the running, finish in the top 10, and win a Masters once in a while. And this right here, I find I wasn't good at this till I got in business. Then you either sink or swim. You have to sell your community. And a lot of economic developers are not comfortable with being salesmen. I mean, the word salesman hasn't, you think of the used car dealer or whatever. And in reality, studies show that it takes 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th follow-up. You got to call somebody 5 to 12 times to make a sale. And most people are not comfortable with that, whether they're an economic developer or anything else. They're just not comfortable with it. I was not when I was an economic, but once you get it, own your own business and you got no charge to make payroll, you'll get comfortable with it. So as economic developers, I think we have to do a better job of recognizing we're the salespeople of our town. And you can't just call somebody once. You can't just call them twice. Literally, studies have shown usually it's the 7th or 8th attempt that you call it. But 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. 48% of salespeople now, not economic developers, never follow up. So much is in follow-up, I just can't tell you. Within our company, every Tuesday, so if you ever try to buy something from us, you'll get this. Every Tuesday, I email all our prospects with just a follow-up. I typically say, checking in on this, any news. I write one sentence every Tuesday. I do it every Tuesday morning. It may take me 2 hours. I live with email 400 people. Checking in, any news. Y'all will be shocked. Don't do it on Monday, people too busy. Don't do it on Friday, they don't want to hear from you. Do it on Tuesday. Y'all, we make sales every Tuesday. It's just part of the process. So this is something as an economic developer, hit that consultant, hit that company you would do, just say any news. That's all you got to say. You don't have to keep following up. And really, I think rural America's biggest issue is standing out. People want to be in rural America. You can believe that. I think I've got it in here. In case I don't, I'll tell it now. I did economic development for Paducah, Kentucky, a little town down on the Ohio River in Western Kentucky. And that was my last job before I started this company. And we had a big budget. We had a $2 million a year budget for economic development. So it was enough money I could do some stuff. And I would pay a meeting setting firm to set me meetings, 100 meetings a year. I'd go meet with companies, try to tell them to move their plant to Paducah. Not move a plant, but next time you expand, put it here. So I'd go to Detroit and meet with 8 or 9 companies. I'd go to Los Angeles. That's how I got so big in Canada. I'd go to Toronto, Winnipeg, so on and so forth. And I tracked it. 320 of them or so, I think it's in here, told me they wanted to be in a rural town. I flat asked them when we started a conversation. I said, now, before I tell you about Paducah, I want to know the next time you got to add square footage or machinery, would you rather do it here? Because I'm sitting in downtown Chicago, let's say. Or would you rather do it in a rural town? 320 of them said rural. So I know they want to be in rural. So a lot of times as I give these talks, rural America feels beat down because they think nobody wants to be here. All our kids is leaving. We don't this, we don't that. You got to reverse your thinking. They want to be here, but you got to stand out. You've got millions of competitors, millions of them. So I show this. I'm from Mississippi, so everybody thinks of Jackson. There are 32 towns in America named Jackson. So for Jackson to even get its name out, it's got to be 31 other Jacksons, much less Memphis or Nashville or anywhere else. A few weeks ago, you saw Ford announce they were putting a plant in Jackson, Tennessee. A lot of people thought that was Jackson, Mississippi, because they just saw Jackson. So your real challenge is not, do prospects want to be here? I'm telling y'all, they do. More so now than ever. With all of the lockdowns and COVID and everything else, people want to get out of the cities. You can see it right in New Orleans where I'm at. We also got an office in St. Louis. If y'all go to downtown St. Louis, it is boarded up. You go out to the suburbs, St. Charles, all those places down there, it's thriving. Everybody's left the city. So this is your Super Bowl. But you got to be able to figure out how do we get people looking at us? They want to be here. You got to figure out how to get them looking at you. Oh, so here's the stats. So this is what I learned. 323 of these companies I met with, I did 100 a year, 4 years in a row. 323 told me they wanted to be in the suburbs or rural. That's what they told me. And this was in 2010 to 14. That's more now, I'll promise you, with everything that's went on with the COVID virus. That is more now. So 80% of them said, I want to be in the suburb or rural. Now, we were targeting companies that were not publicly traded. Family-owned companies who I want to meet with. I wanted to meet with it, but I don't mean small now. You know, you can have a family-owned company, $500 million, $1 billion in revenue, but we were targeting companies that were still owned by the father or the, you know, whoever his children were that took over the company, who could make decisions we could actually build a relationship with. They weren't just going to look at a spreadsheet. And of those, 323 said they wanted to be in the suburbs. So down here, you'll see, usually we tried to call on companies that had 2 or 3 locations. So not just one plant. and 50 to 500 employees. What I really learned in dealing with them, there's something called the proximity principle. No matter what you want to do, you want to put yourself in proximity with people who think like whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, you want to be a good basketball player, your best bet to go hang around Michael Jordan somewhere. When it comes to economic development, what I found in Paducah, Kentucky was the people who wanted to be there were located near the big cities, but they were out in the suburbs. You go to Chicago and you go out into Aurora, some of those suburbs out in there, and you start meeting with companies, and every one of them will tell you, yes, I would love to put my next location in, say, Paducah, Kentucky. We did 11 deals there in 4 years. So y'all know through this effort. So what you got to do, though, is find, and I'm telling you, the best places to find this is the big cities, but the suburbs. Find you some companies, and they're not going up and move the plant. It's too expensive, too risky. Tell them the next time you expand, where would you rather be? Would you rather be here or there? Your weakness in rural America has always been labor. That's always been our weakness in rural America. It's not a weakness anymore. It is a nationwide weakness. You got no more of a weakness here in labor than they do in downtown St. Louis. I promise you, you don't. I was coming through Memphis the other night and stopped at a Denny's restaurant. Bacon and eggs is all over. I'm on a keto diet, so I can't eat bread. So I got to eat bacon and eggs. So I stopped in here. Half the people hadn't showed up. I think they had 2 cooks and a waitress is all that showed up. Before you knew it, they were arguing with each other because the cook didn't understand the order or whatever. They were slinging cuss words back and forth with all these kids in the restaurant in Memphis. And I'm sitting there thinking, my God, what have we come to? You can't even go into a McDonald's and get food in Atlanta. So now you got the strength. What was the weakness was labor. You now have a strength if you look for the right companies. Now, can you put 5,000 jobs here? Probably not. Can you put 50 to 75? Absolutely. You're going to have an easier time here than in one of the big cities. But you got to understand the proximity principle. You got to get yourself either on the internet, at conferences, whatever, in front of people who will not look down on rural America, but will look at it as a positive. And a lot of those people in the big cities, but they're out in the suburbs. So let's talk about some of the things that you want to know before you really go and call on these people. And then we'll talk about how you can get your community in front of them. So the first thing that I really recommend rural communities do is map your assets. Map your assets. And I don't mean all of these are a literal map. Some of this is bullet points of human beings who could help you. So I'm going to show you the asset mapping that I recommend you do. And I would probably update this every year if I were y'all. So whether y'all want to do this as one, small town or as a group, that's up to y'all. But there are really 7 types of assets that you want to inventory. And these are the things that you need to know. So when you get that prospect, you know what to tell them. See, you may not get but 3 or 4 prospects a year. So you can't afford to blow one. You got to know what your strengths are. So the first is human capital. What available workforce do you have by skills? Who are the stakeholders and influencers who grew up here but live elsewhere? I think rural towns do a bad job of tracking your kids who grew up here. Maybe they made it big in Denver or wherever. You'll be shocked if you called and asked them to support some initiative you would do and how honored they'd be. They'd be honored. They wouldn't look at it as they'll give money, they'll do this and that. I would track every kid that came out of here that ended up starting a business somewhere, even if they never came back. And I'd figure out some way to leverage that into a relationship. So you really want to track all the people who can help you. Who are the super connectors? Who are the people that call on these industries in these big cities that might enjoy putting a plant in rural? Engineers, lawyers, bankers, all of them. Some of our best deals ever came from bankers. Folks that said, I've got a company that needs to expand. They have no earthly idea where to do it. Can y'all help them? That's some of the best deals we ever get. So you really need to understand your human capital. Then you need, and this will change on you. I mean, this will literally change every year. Then you want to really understand your geographic assets. This won't change on you. Y'all already know most of this, but you need to understand it. You'll be surprised how many economic developers where we'll go to, they'll have a railroad running by a site and they won't know if the rail can serve it or not. Because just because the rail runs by it don't mean the railroad can stop there. I mean, it's just a fact. They won't know that. So you really need to understand all of your geographic assets. And you need to understand all the assets that you have built. So this is not what God gave you, you built it. You need buildings. 80% of these deals go into existing buildings. And I'm not sure y'all have that capacity right now. So I don't know if y'all want to go together and build a spec building, what you might want, but I'm telling you, 80% of these go into buildings. And right now with these supply chain shortages, you're going to see a rush of manufacturing all at once, and they're going to need to go fast. So if you don't have a building stood up for them, you're going to be at a disadvantage. I build a spec building and you'll get prospects off of it, even if they never go there. They'll come here and look, you'll allow to build them something right next door. You also want to understand your culture, and you want to recruit people who will appreciate that. There are people who love rural communities. As I listened last night to the presentation from the chief, I can't remember what his title was. I thought I was back in rural Mississippi. I mean, we have tribes in rural Mississippi. I literally could have put you there. You wouldn't know you were in Minnesota. So you want to recruit people with the culture you want. And you really need to chart the financing options you have for businesses. How can you help a business? This is where you can stand out. If you've got a building and you have anything creative to help them, this is where you can stand out. I have found the rural towns to have the most success do it with real estate. Let's say you had a building, and let's say that you tell a prospect, all right, if you'll put 50 jobs in here, they're credit worthy, you do all your diligence, we'll lease this to you for free for 2 years. All of a sudden now they think you're giving them a heck of a deal. You charge them everything you want on the back end. Why is that important? Well, most manufacturers lose money when they start a plant. I don't care if it's Toyota, I don't care if it's a big plant or a little one. They lose money the first 2 years. It's too much risk, it's too much to do. You got to set your equipment, you got to establish your supply chain, you got to fire people, hire people. You're going to lose money. They know that going here. So the rural towns I find that win, there's a town in Kentucky called Murray. They got Murray State University. If y'all ever see them in the basketball tournament, they land an industry every year. And I asked him, how do y'all do that? He builds a spec building. He offers it free for 2 years. He then charges full amortization, so they get all their money out of it. But the banks have worked with him. 2 years, you get it for free. And I swear to God, they land a deal every 2 years. But this is the aggression you got to do. You don't have to think you got to give away everything, but you got to think like a business. If that business is going to lose money the first 2 years, what you can do to help them? Maybe you lower their electric rate the first 2 years. If you don't have a building, what can you do to assist them in that time? If you take that pitch to Winnipeg, Calgary, Chicago suburbs or whatever, you don't have to offer everything. You don't have to give them millions of dollars. If you take that pitch on the road, you will have human beings coming here looking around, but you probably do need a building. And then obviously you got political people who can help. So this changes on you as well. What I find the rural towns sometimes struggle with is they don't necessarily know the staff people. You know, they'll say, well, governor can, I know the governor, I know the senator. That ain't really who you need to know. You got to know the staff people within those. And I'll tell y'all, if this infrastructure bill ever passes, and I don't know if it will or not, but the bill the Senate passed has billions and billions for infrastructure for rural towns. I was shocked when I read it how much was for rural. I can only assume the fellow from West Virginia, Manchin, got that in because West Virginia is so rural. It's billions, and the money is going to flow fast. So rural towns right now, y'all need to be knowing your transportation people from from the United States Department of Transportation in the region. You need to be going to Washington because when that passes, you want to be in line for it. I mean, there is billions in there for the rural towns that you want to know, but you got to know the staff folks. And then obviously you got to inventory all of your social folks. So once you're finished, what do you want to do? Well, you want to create stories. That's what you want to do. So statistics show that the sales pitch is 60% of people remember a story versus just statistics or whatever. They remember stories. That's what they remember. And so what you want to do is take all that stuff and come up with you a story. And then you go tell it, or you tell it on the internet, which is really cheap. I'll show you that. So what would a story be? A time when your community was at its best. What was something where y'all at, maybe you at your best in the worst of situations. You had a flood and you saved your industry, whatever. When were you at your best? When did you have something really exciting happen? What kind of community development are you doing? What unique stuff do you have here? You want to build stories. You want to talk about how you invest in yourself. That's what these industries want to hear, is a town that invested in itself. They don't want to hear you say, well, we'll go to the state capitol and ask for this grant, or they don't want to hear that. They want to hear you say, we're doing this for ourselves. We'll go get that for you, but we're doing this for ourselves. Where was I the other day? I can't remember where I was, but they have passed a on your water bill in this town, where was I? I think I was in Missouri. On your water bill, you can round it up from, $22.18 to $23. And that extra 82 cents goes into a fund that then pays for all their kids to go to technical college if they want to for free. They don't have to pay a dime. It pays not only the tuition, but if they any certification, they literally pay nothing. And what does that? They told a story to our prospect, and we got in the car. That's the one thing the prospect remembered. They said, now that's something even a single mother can feel they're contributing, they're rounding up their water bill. It's not just the rich philanthropist in town was doing it. So anything you can do to really help yourself. Then you want to document your strengths, obviously, make a plan to market them, and you want to think about how to address your weaknesses, but you don't want to tell your weaknesses to the world. I am shocked when I look at some economic development websites, they will pull demographics from like the state economic development agency or whatever. I think it was Mississippi I was looking the other day. This town accidentally had their teen pregnancy rate on their sales pitch. And y'all, it was like 25%. They literally pulled this from the state of Mississippi's demographics database. So I don't recommend you tell everybody your weaknesses. You need to know it, but don't tell it to everybody. All right, so then you want to inventory what you have that can interest the manufacturer. So this is what if you have industrial buildings, that is your best bet. People will look at buildings no different than a house. It's an emotional thing. They like looking at it. If you got the nicest building in the world, they're going to look at it. They're not going to first ask themselves, is this town big enough? What's close to there? It's just a natural thing, especially if you get like a virtual tour of it, people will look at it. So if you have industrial buildings, you want to show them. If you don't have them, you might want to build a spec building. That's something you might want to do. You want to show your labor, and I'm going to get into in a minute how to do that. If you don't have industrial buildings, go ahead and show build-to-suit options on your industrial sites. Go ahead and have an engineer show you how you would build that. Maybe have a bank say, for the right deal, we'll finance this. Do as much of that pre-work as you can. But also, you want to show your existing industry and support companies. When I was in Paducah, we had a page on our website. We looked at the stats, and the page that got hit the most, other than our homepage, was a page we call support companies. We had on there a list of all our machine shops. We had on there a temporary staffing agency. We had insurance companies, all the companies that can support an industry. That was the second most hit webpage. It was more hit than our buildings, our sites, our incentives, our maps, anything. People wanted to see who all was there. It's no telling the machine shops y'all have here. Tool and die, all that kind of stuff. So you want to inventory that, because what you want to do is really show a critical mass to a company that they can be successful. You want to have incentives that are different, which could be the real estate incentive. Mistake I see so often, these communities are just let the state of Minnesota answer the incentives for them. Well, now you're competing with every other county here. I don't know how many counties y'all have. Texas has 250 counties. If you let the state of Texas answer it, how are you going to beat the rest of them? So you got to come up with something that's unique to you. I think the real estate piece in rural is the best option if you can possibly do it, because it shows you understand business. When you're meeting with that business owner, whoever it is, you understand you're going to lose money right at first. You understand that. We trying to offset your operating costs at first so you can make money in the long run. Or if you have municipal owned utility companies, if there's anything you can do with that to be different. We have cheaper water for food processors, for instance. I mean, that's something that would win. And we have cheaper wastewater. We have cheaper electric power. These are things that could certainly make you stand out. And remember, if you just do it for 2 years, you don't have to do it forever. 2 years will win a lot of deals. So as you think about your clusters, energy, forestry, and there's a lot of paper type products coming back to the US right now. Mining and manufacturing. What I would challenge you to do is really think about what are your unique sales pitch to each of these. Don't just have a one size fits all. What incentives are you going to offer forestry companies? And that may very well differ from your energy companies. Think about how you want to pitch yourself to these various different type companies. So next, you want to make a value proposition based off the industry you have here. Never sell from a position of weakness. You want to say, you ought to come here because so-and-so else is here. We're not the little sisters of the poor expecting a handout. You need to come here because we're a good community, you make money, and we will support you. So I think this is how you set that up. Come here because we have XYZ critical mass of industries. And you make your region however big you need to get that. If your town don't have any industries, then you got to talk about your county, or you got to talk about a 200-mile radius, whatever you need. We already have these people. You should come here because of that. We got a building for you. Or if we don't have a building, we're going to build one for you, and we're going to lease it to you for free the first year, or for interest only, or for 2 years. That's what we're going to do. We're going to help you recruit, screen, and train your labor. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. We've got this utility advantage, whatever it is. We got lower water, lower electric, whatever. We got these incentives for you, and then we're going to give you a tax credit or whatever. So we're not only going to help you right at first, we're going to help you for 10 years. That's your pitch. Now, your pitch will vary based on which, if you're going after energy companies, you want to use energy as your existing industry. Every rural town can do this, and then you just got to get your message out. This is the Mississippi Delta, the poorest part of the whole United States, by far. It's not even close. This is the poorest region of the United States. Every one of these counties has one little plant, but they all banded together, and look what this looks like. If you didn't know any better, you would think the Mississippi Delta is the best place in the world to do manufacturing. I mean, they got Cooper Tires and General Electric's got an airplane plant there and all this, but look at this. So what they have done is took a teetotal weakness from a sales standpoint, and this is on their website. You ought to come here because AutoZone's got a distribution store, all this other. So this is what y'all could certainly do with some of the logos that you have here. And then, and I really see economic developers mess this up, so I want to hit home on this. You need to build yourself a sales team. And don't just let it be whoever the mayor said it ought to be, or whoever this one said it ought to be, or whatever. You got to find people who can sell. You just got to flat out find it. So the best sales teams I have seen have an existing industry person as your top salesperson, not the economic developer. Now, the economic developers like to coach. You got to arrange all of this, coach them what to say. But if you sit down with an HR manager or a plant manager or a business owner and they say, listen, we got 4 plants. I just did this in Forest City, Iowa. I won't say what the plant was, but they told me, they said, we have, I believe it was 3 plants in that particular plant was judged against. They said, without question, this is our most profitable plant in our network. And here's why. That's powerful. I mean, that's the thing that people are going to remember. So you need to find who within your community as a business person can say that. This plant's judged against that one in Missouri and Illinois and Iowa, and this is the best. This one produces the best. This one has the best employee, whatever the case may be. That's what you want to do. And you need one person to sell your workforce training. We have been in towns where 17 folks have come in when it comes to workforce training. And it's like, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. You're sitting there, I don't know what this one does. The college will come in, the training center will come in. You'll have somebody from the Office of Veterans trying to get veterans jobs. You'll have somebody from on-the-job training, all this stuff, and you're sitting there and you can't figure out what they said. You need one person, preferably an HR manager if they've used it, who can sell. This is how our town can help you recruit people. Louisiana does the best job of this I ever seen. They flat out tell folks, we're going to run ads for you in these places. We're going to email the entire LSU database for you. We're going to this, we're going to that, we're going to the other. I mean, they flat out tell them this is what all we're going to do to recruit for you. You don't have to recruit for yourself. We're going to do it for you. Then you need to show how you're going to screen the people. Most all of rural towns have technology through your colleges that can do this. You put them through some kind of work keys assessment. It tells if they can do math or reading or whatever. So you want to be able to explain how you do that. And then lastly, how are you going to train these people? This is how we're going to train them. We're going to train them on machinery similar to yours. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. If you can get your workforce pitch into that, this is how we're going to recruit, screen, and train, you will win. Because 90% of your competitors can't do that. They make it too complicated. It's like you're reading an encyclopedia that you don't understand what you've heard when you leave. And a lot of times the people that are visiting you is not the HR manager. It's the CEO, it's the CFO, it's the tax people. They don't understand what that, if you were sitting with an HR manager, they might understand what you're saying. But the CEO is not going to understand all this alphabet soup coming out. So you want to show recruit, screen, and train. You need to have people from your utilities that can sell, from your engineers who can sell, and elected officials. And engineers don't just have somebody because they're the city engineer if they can't sell. You got to find people who can sell, and your board chairman have to support you in your decisions. We had an engineer in Paducah, Kentucky sets on the New Madrid Fault. Now, they have not been an earthquake down there in 200 or 300 years. But if you looked at a map, it is as dangerous as Los Angeles or San Francisco. And we would host an industry the first couple of times, and my engineer, he couldn't help it. He was too honest. He would tell these people, now you got to build, it's about 20% more to build here than anywhere else because of this earthquake coming. He was telling them the truth, but he was telling them at the wrong time. You don't want to tell them that when you sell them. I finally had to say, listen, I'm sorry, we don't need you on our team. I'm going to find me another, because I told him don't do that no more. Next time he did it again. So I finally said, listen, I got to have a different engineer. Did I make people mad? Yes. I won the next deal. They figured out it cost 20% more later and still haven't had an earthquake. So think about who's your sales team for your clusters. Again, there's not a one size fits all. Who is your sales team for your different clusters? If you only get this part right, you'll probably go to winning. If you come up with a unique incentive, whatever it is, free water, cheaper power, whatever it is, you got to come up with your sales team. And you want different incentives than others. And so I like how this one organized it. So this particular community, I think this might be Shreveport. They have real estate incentives. So you can lease space for up to 2 years. They've got a big GM plant down there that's empty now. So they got 2 million square feet sitting empty. So they're literally willing to let you lease it. So they have broken out into real estate incentives, cash incentives. Down there, you can get a payroll rebate. So we'll see cash incentives, which of course is the most important thing you can have, the interest rate. And I will actually see states, instead of saying you get 6% of payroll back as a rebate, they'll have some fancy word. This is the MIA program. And the MIA program, it'll be 2 pages to tell you I get 6% of my payroll back. That's a heck of an incentive. You got to be able to sell that. So figure out what you have that's different, and don't just do what the next town's doing or Minneapolis is doing or whatever. You want to be able to beat them. And by far the ones that win most is reduced real estate. So I've been a part of 27 deals in my career that went to small town, either as a private business owner and every one of them had some kind of reduced real estate. So this was the deal in Mobile, Alabama we did, a $4 billion steel mill. The state totally prepared the site. The state of Alabama prepared the site down to a pad. This was a site that was on the river, swamp land, forested. They totally prepared the site. This is one we did in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. This was with a Canadian company. And basically we took a spec building, and a previous tenant had already paid the note down. So we only owe, $500,000 left on the $1.5 million spec building. So we ended up selling it for what was on the note. This was in 2008, when the recession was bad. So we made no money, but the town ended up with 150 jobs out of it. This is another entity where we got a building for $1.80 a square foot. Normal lease rate's about $3 a foot. This is a company that went to Kentucky out of Michigan. This is where you'll find your success, by the way. This is a company in Ludington, Michigan, right there on the lake. And they wanted to be in rural. $200 million a year revenue, owned by the family. They do aluminum extrusion for Ford F-150s, so they wanted to be in Kentucky. This one here, we had a private foundation. Somehow or another, we couldn't build the building, whatever way it worked out. And so we had a private developer build it, but we had private foundation money to pay the rent for 2 years. So the private developer made their money. We used private money to pay it, and the town got the jobs out of it. So these are just ways you want to do for different incentives. If you can't do the real estate, come up with something else when it comes to utilities or what have you. Next, you want to build a pitch around your labor. Whatever it is, you want to build a pitch around your labor. So the way you got to do this in rural is show how far people will drive. You're never going to compete with Chicago, but my God, you can get from O'Hare to downtown in less than an hour. Think how far you can get from here in an hour. So you've got to be able to show if you pay so much here, people will flat out drive here to work. And then you got to show how to recruit, screen, and train them. So this is a labor study we did over in Illinois, where we found the Walmart type jobs would only drive from the red circle, $10 an hour. Once you got to about 15, people would drive from this green. And once you got over 20, they would drive in from way out here. Now, the employers didn't necessarily like seeing, I gotta pay $20 to get somebody to drive from there. That's probably 25 today with the price of gas, but at least they knew. At least they knew what was the honest truth. So you've got to be able to show where you can pull from for all of your clusters. And then this is the most important. You can do all this in the world, but if you don't market it, nobody looks at it, ain't gonna do you any good. You can build the prettiest website in the world, nobody looks at it, you've wasted every penny that you have spent. You can have the ugliest website and everybody looks at it, you're gonna win. I mean, that's just the honest truth. So you've got to build marketing infrastructure that gets to people. Website is by far the best. You can literally pay Facebook to make every industry and whatever suburb in Minneapolis you won't see your website. You can pay them to do it. It won't cost you $500. You can literally pay them to do it. You got to have maps that sell. You got to have marketing infrastructure around your buildings, slideshows, and so forth. So many websites I go to have maps that you got to be an engineer to figure out what you're looking at. You got all these layers and waterline, you know, you're sitting there and it tears your computer down. You need maps that just sell. So this is, I think, Kingsport, Tennessee. Now look, there's not an automotive plant really close to Kingsport. Honestly, y'all look. But to see this map, you think they're all right there. Just the way the map's built. It's not a lie. It's just the map was built in a marketing type fashion. But honestly, there's about a 200-mile gap where there's no automotive company there. But they were able to show this in a way that they look right in the middle, just the way they were able to do it. Water line, sewer line, always show you utility infrastructure in an easy way. Honestly, you can get your kid in college to do this for you. Don't make it where you got to click all these buttons to find your water and your sewer line. This is pretty simple. The red's the electric, the blue's the water, so on and so forth. So think about for your clusters how you want to do that. And then how do you get your town on the map? So most economic developers haul off to Chicago and meet with site consultants. They go to New York, they go to Dallas, Atlanta, so on and so forth, meet with site consultants. And you should do that. But I don't think you're going to build a systemic program that's going to get you prospects every day through that effort. I think you'll win a deal here or there, so it's worth doing. But I just don't think you're going to find prospects every day that do that. Most of the time that I'm giving a talk, I was asked to talk at the Mid-America Economic Development Council. I was the only one there talking rural. All the rest of them were talking big city, you know, and they were all talking, you know, we now want to see your bike trails and we want to see your electric, green energy stuff and all of this kind of stuff. And a lot of the manufacturers that we represent, they're not going to ask you for that. They want to know cost. That's just flat out the facts. And so what I find is calling on them is not going to build a program that works. What will build a program that works? There's two ways to do marketing, inbound and outbound. Inbound, you put stuff out and you just hope to goodness you put enough out that people find it. And an outbound is where you literally call people. So we'll talk about both. But the best thing you can do with testimonial videos, if y'all can find, right now, your best testimonial could be an HR manager. If you can find an HR manager here who's been an HR manager in 3 or 4 other locations that can honestly say, this is the best we have for labor. They don't have to lie. They don't say labor's easy. No, labor's hard everywhere. If they can say, of all of our plants, this is the best labor we have, that's all you got to get them to say. 30 seconds. You can run that ad everywhere you want it to run. Winnipeg, Toronto, Chicago, wherever. You're going to have people call and click and call and click on you. So what you want to do is take testimonials, case studies, anything such as this, and feature as many of these industries as you can. Put them on LinkedIn, advertise them, pay for social media. You'll have people here that can help you do that, and that would generate activity for you. If you do podcasts, this is interesting. We got a podcast show. I'm interviewing Brian when we finish, if we have time. And the interesting thing is, it's not the people who interact with us aren't people I already know. It'll be people he knows, because now they've heard us for the first time. So if you did a podcast show of this part of Minnesota, and every week you interviewed a different business owner, what would happen, that business owner would put it on all their stuff because they want everybody to listen to their show. And now everybody they know is going to hear it. You know, they may know folks in Cheyenne, Wyoming, they're going to hear it. So before you know it, everybody's hearing this stuff. If you do that, and honestly, we may spend $200 a year on our podcast show. It doesn't cost much money. When it comes to outbound marketing, you probably want to go to trade shows. So a lot of communities go to trade shows. and you don't have a lot of success, what I would do is go to trade show with some of your existing companies. Ask some of your existing companies, what shows do y'all go to? And let's say they go to a show in Denver. Go with them to the show. Say, hey, we'll help pay for the booth. We'll buy you a dinner, whatever. We'll step out when you need private meetings. They probably love to have you. Now you have other people there that know them, that think like them. You're in the proximity principle. You have them. While you're in Denver, you can go see some other companies in Denver and try to recruit them. That's how I would build my shows. I wouldn't just run off to the forestry show. I would go with one of my forestry companies to the forestry show and sit in their booth. You can pay lead generation firms to set you meetings, email marketing, and even cold calling. So this stat goes back to 2019. It's probably more effective now. The most effective outbound marketing tactic is cold emails by far. I'm going to embarrass myself now. We send 20,000 cold emails a day as a company. Probably as I've been standing here, 10,000 went. It's all set up to go automatic. We typically get one new customer a day. That means 19,999 told us no. I mean, that's how you got to think about it. But our new customer averages about $20,000 a customer. You know, so getting one a day, that's a lot of money. It's worth it to us. So we send 20,000 emails a day. So you can't think to myself, I'm going to send 30 emails a day. I'm going to send 40. You got to email everybody. But our staff's always like, wow, we got a new client today. And I'm sitting there thinking 19,999, threw it away, didn't like it, put us in their spam folder, whatever. But they're going to get another one from us tomorrow. It is the most effective because it costs you no money. Honest to God, we might spend $1,000 a year. I'm going to skip some of this because we're running out of time. But y'all have these slides. So what I did is put in here, based on whatever budget you have, how you might want to set you up an email marketing program. So if you only got $1,000, I got in here what I would do, like email every engineer within 200 miles, email every banker, so on and so forth. And then this builds up. If you got 5,000, what would I do? So that no matter how big your town is, you can find a budget that will fit for you. I will show you this for us. So this is our website. I got 5 minutes. So on our website, we say flat out, small to mid-sized companies deserve the same incentives that Amazon and Google give. That's kind of our pitch, because remember, I'm for the small to mid-size. And over here, we got a webinar that goes off every 8 minutes, every 10 minutes, where they, I'm on there telling the incentives that they order to get you to. It goes off every 10 minutes. To watch it, the people have to put their name in all that. I think this costs us $90 a month. Every day we get people hitting it. I mean, well, not the weekend, but I mean, here, and I see who they are. I see this is I think this is a company in New Jersey. These slides are a little old now. This is a company in Los Angeles. So every morning I literally see, this is not a cold email. These people have logged in to watch my stuff. You can do that here. And then you want to blanket the areas that you know you can have success, which I think Winnipeg, the whole Canadian area, Chicago, I think you can have success in Minneapolis even. Remember, you're not asking people to move their plant. You're telling them next time you expand, where do you want to be? Give us consideration. But all this can literally be set up 1,000, 2,000. I mean, you're not talking very much money. So with that, I think we're out of time. So I will happily answer any questions. Let's see if there's anything else you guys for sure know. All right. Happily, let me end with this. Then I'll answer the question. The most common mistake I see in rural town, I'm a football fan. Now the Vikings always beat the Saints. Every year y'all beat us. In the playoffs, we'll beat y'all in the regular season, and then when it matters, you beat us every year. But basically, the biggest mistake I see in a small town are you elected officials end up acting like the quarterback, not the offensive line. To me, the elected officials need to be the offensive line. The economic developer needs to be the quarterback. Now, let me kind of explain what I mean by that. Offensive line, in reality, is more important. I'd rather have the best offensive line in the NFL than the best quarterback. Look, Kansas City's losing now. They easily have the best quarterback. The line's hurt. Offensive line is more important, but it's not as prestigious. You see, it takes a team. You can't just have one good offensive lineman. You got to have 5 of them. So to me, the best communities, the elected officials or the team that sets it all up, They protect, they block. Now, if the economic developer is doing a bad job, they might have to get rid of them, but they are the team that protects for them. The quarterback throws the ball. They figure out who does this, how are we going to do this, not the other way around. I see this get backwards when I see the elected officials think they're the quarterback. They end up, especially with all this money now coming from Washington, it's going to be folks going to jail misspending this stuff. I mean, they will, because they just don't, and out of innocence, you're going to see that happen. So this is really the biggest mistake that I see in rural towns. So I'm now happy to answer questions. And then I'll also say this, a lot of rural towns spend all their time preparing. And I go to so many rural development conferences, it's all about preparing. We got to prepare our sites, we got to prepare our workforce, we got this, we got that, and we do. But the time for that's almost come to an end. Now you got to play the game. We in real trouble with this supply chain problem. I mean, I'm telling y'all, we are. And the big cities aren't gonna get us out of it. It's gonna be the rural towns that get us out of it, whether any of us like it or not. I live in New Orleans, I watch it, I see it. The rural towns are gonna get us out of this with manufacturing. We're gonna have to manufacture this stuff here. We can't depend on shipping everything from China. It's just not gonna work. And to do that, y'all gonna have to do it. So as much as we have to prepare, this is the Super Bowl. I mean, you got a 20-year window here. Well, we're either gonna go or we're not, and this is it. So while you prepare, also get out there and play in the game and try to make some stuff happen. So with that, I will end and take questions. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I've got two for you, please. And since time is limited, I'll try to bundle them in a two package instead of doing them two separately. Number one, there are a few people in this room, not many, but about 20 years ago, for example, IEDC had done a similar venture called Jobs 2020 at that point in time. And anybody from Hattiesburg ought to be able to talk about something that group or that effort resulted in. And that was a visit to Tupelo. Okay, and I wonder if you might give a little follow-up. I know you weren't on that one, and that actually was probably a little bit before your time, you know, promoting this, but you might want to comment on Tupelo just a little bit to reflect back on what happened now that you know a little bit the situation in Itasca County. Number two, here, you're a good talker, so I'll try to slip in number two before you dominate again. You know, you're quite well aware of what some of the resource industries have done along the Gulf Coast, Louisiana and Texas especially. Okay, and I'm not sure anybody in Itasca County really is looking for oil refineries at this point in time or petchem plants. However, one thing, Minnesota is the fourth largest mining state in the United States. Okay, and it's a major business in this part of the state. It's a major underpinning the economy. There are some small manufacturing businesses, small to mid-sized manufacturing business in this region. You've got things like ASV in Grand Rapids. You've got things like H&L Radiator and Detroit Diesel and Hibbing and so forth, all of which primarily have the mining industry or major as mining and to some extent also energy and forestry paper type companies as clients. Okay, how would you look at a major industry like that as a way to stimulate manufacturing, small and mid-sized manufacturing in Itasca County or more generally in this region, in this region rather, as the nugget that forms a complex? Right.
All right. I'll answer that one first, then remind me to do Tupelo. So I am from Mississippi, so I've been to Elvis's birthplace. It ain't much to say. To do that, I would honestly have a real thorough, and we're not the firm to do this, supply chain conducted on that industry and understand who's here, who ought to be here. There are now softwares that can even predict what type of jobs should expand. They can even follow a company's revenue and square footage and say they're about to have to expand. So I would do a real thorough analysis of it on both sides of the supply chain. And then I would make sure though, that I had everything in here to sell that they needed. I had a site ready, or I had a building, I had some incentives. I knew what my pitch was going to be. The heavier the manufacturer, the bigger the electric rate factor. So, you know, the bigger the manufacturer you get, to win a big one, they'll happily pay you for the land. You don't got to give them the land. They're going to want an electric rate discount. So, you know, that's just the type of stuff you got to understand. As far as Tupelo, So Tupelo is probably, at least in the South, the most studied small town economic development entity there is. People go there, there've been books written about it, they study it. Tupelo had all the furniture jobs for years. And of course, all that went to China. And they have totally reinvigorated their economy. Matter of fact, they just won a Toyota. I say just one. It's like the Masters, you know. They won it 10 years ago. Seems just to me. They won a Toyota plant in a different county from Tupelo. Now talk about talking regionally. They put money, Lee County, Mississippi put money, and I think it was Union County for this Toyota plant. And they did a deal where if they won the deal, they would split some of the tax revenue. But Tupelo actually incentivized the plant, not in Tupelo, I mean, to win that deal. But Tupelo had a guy named Harry Martin, I believe was his name. Years ago, the rich guy in town, one of the things that's helped him, he owned a newspaper. And when he died, he gave the newspaper to the Economic Development Organization. So they've got millions in revenue and they write the stories. So they can ensure that they're always getting pro-business stories written. But yeah, I mean, they honestly are a model for it. They do community development and economic development all together. And they had a huge, their unemployment got to 30% when all those furniture companies left. And now they have all kind of metal manufacturing, automotive. Of course, when you win a Toyota, you get all the spin-off plants around it. So that's one you certainly could study very, very well. Now, I remember them saying the rich guy in town, like in the 20s, walked around and talked to everybody into inseminating a cow or something, because it was going to give, you know, better cows or whatever, and talked everybody into doing it. And they made money off that. So whoever this one guy was, I think his name was Harry Martin. He led them through that whole thing. But it shows one person can make a huge difference. And they're giving the paper to the town, gave them a revenue stream to go out and do everything they needed to do. And I mean, they got more money than big cities, and they're playing in that game. So I know we're almost out of time. Any other questions? All right, we have a podcast show every Thursday. Hopefully Brian's my interview tomorrow, so y'all can hear him. We get it recorded in time. So we love talking about this stuff. Put this up here if you want. Somehow I've turned it off. Oh well, it's not working now. Matt knows how to get a hold of me if you need our phone number. Thank y'all so much. Tell her.